Hi there, my name is Alan Sapika, and I'm going to be giving you guys a presentation on Homo sapiens, or the evolution of Homo sapiens. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what is a Homo sapien? Well, I'm here to tell you that Homo sapiens are modern humans, or in short, they're us. Now, you're probably wondering, how did humans occur? Well, they occurred from evolution. Now, you're probably thinking, what characteristics make up a human? Or which were brought by change? Well, I'm going to say it's possibly eyes, skull, or bones, or maybe it's other things, and you'll find out later in my presentation. Another question you guys may have is, how did humans make it to the Americas? Like, did they migrate here, or, why may have they come here? Was it from boats, swimming? Did they island hop? How did such a large group suddenly appear in the Americas? And lastly, you're probably thinking, what was the global climate back like then? And was it different from our temperature now, or was it the same? Was it cold? Was it hot? Well, you're going to find out more in my presentation about the evolution of Homo sapiens and more. So, for my introduction, we are going to learn about evolution, characteristics, dispersal, and climate. So the first part covers the evolution of Homo sapiens. So we're going to be learning what it is, a little bit about phylogeny, and if you guys don't know what that means, I'll explain it on this slide. And we're going to learn about modern versus archaic. And then for the second part, for characteristics, we are going to basically learn about the changes that were caused in the hominin lineage. So that means skull changes, changes in bone structure, and also bipedalism. For the third part, we are going to be talking about the dispersal to the Americas, or known as the peopling of the Americas. So we're going to talk about two possible theories, and we're going to basically kind of discuss which seems to be the more likely answer, because some people kind of think that one is better, the other one's better, so we're just going to talk about some evidence and everything. And then for the last part, we are going to be talking about climate. So we're just going to talk about climate in the old world, so like the Ice Age, like what it was kind of like back then, and what kind of maybe caused the Ice Age. So we're going to talk about something called the Walker circulation, and if you don't know what that is, again, it'll just be in the slides. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so we are going to be talking about evolution. Now, what does evolution mean? Evolution means organisms that are changing or developing away from their original formation. And what we're going to be talking about is phylogeny. And phylogeny are reconstructions that are usually created from qualitative studies, so like information or characteristics, and they're not really created from quantitative means. So that means like percentages or data. And now you're probably thinking, what is phylogeny? So phylogeny is the history of an organism, or like the family tree. And I have provided one in this slide. So phylogeny also uses clades, and clades are a part of the family tree, and it shows a bunch of subgroups that branch off from a common ancestor. And that definition is from Wikipedia. So evolution is mainly inferred phylogeny, reconstructions that just basically recreate the history of Homo sapiens. So, the ancestry of hominins links to early dated primates that evolved through the characteristics of evolution. So like bipedalism and a bunch of other things that we're going to discuss in the next slide. So the oldest recognized hominin is the Sahelanthropus, which leads to the Australopithecines and the Anthropithecus clades. And these branches are referred to be more modern because this is what the current Homo sapien evolved from. So they're seen to be modern because this is what Homo sapiens evolved from. So the closer we are to hominins and the more characteristics that are like resemble modern features of humans, they are seen to be the modern clade, while ones that branch away from it or don't have many characteristics that kind of seem human, they're referred to the archaic in clade because they're kind of further away from hominins and they lack the certain characteristics that we usually see in hominins or in Homo sapiens. So they still kind of fit into the structure due to changes like bipedalism, but because they're moving further away from it and not more towards the trajectory of Homo sapiens, they're seen as archaic since they aren't really leading to there. They're branching off and forming their own. All right, and now we're going to talk about characteristics. All right, we're going to be talking about the characteristics of Homo sapiens. So the main characteristic is actually bipedalism. And this was a trait that was learned millions of years ago, and that's when the clades, the earlier clades, began to walk on 2 feet rather than their quads. And bipedalism actually influenced a lot of changes in skeletal structure, like changes in spine, legs, feet, and birthing bones. Cranial traits also occurred, and that means we had an increase in cranial capacity or the volume of the brain. We also experienced an elongated prognathium, dental roof changes, our teeth became less sharp, and we had a lack of a protruding brow ridge. So all of this information is in the document Evolution of Middle-Late Pleistocene Human Craniofacial Form, and that's also where they show 3D approaches to reconstructions of facial features. And all these cranial and facial features occurred in a very slow extent, with the previous hominins losing more archaic and older traits, and they became what we would consider more human today, having more human features. So what makes a human? It's the ability to converse, bipedalism, and intelligence. All right, now we're going to talk about the peopling of the Americas, and this is a really large question when it comes to the topic of Homo sapiens. So there are a few different theories that people try to answer this question with, but we're going to only talk about 2 possible options. That's the Northwest Coastal Corridor and the Mid-Continental Route. Now, the Northwest Coastal Corridor is a route along the shoreline or the coast that brought people to the Americas, and this could possibly be dated around 16,000 years ago. But the issue is, there is a lack of evidence, or at least no archaeological evidence of boats, or certain sites that we would need to use as evidence may have been lost due to sea levels rising. But it can explain earlier sites that are located in the Americas that the land bridge can't really attest to, because they occurred earlier rather than later. Now, the Mid-Continental Route was basically a route that connected Asia and Alaska via a land bridge. This is why it's called the land bridge. And it was opened from around 13,000 years ago, or during the Ice Age when the Earth was freezing. And they traveled through the central part, but the issue with this one is there's a lot of issues when disputing archaeological sites located in the Americas because some of them say that they occurred earlier. Now, what's the answer? Both of them do lack some substantial evidence, but the coastal corridor explains a lot of the earlier sites that were located in the Americas, while the mid-continental route cannot. So the Northwest Coastal Corridor does seem to be the better choice when talking about the peopling of the Americas, but both of them need more evidence to decipher which would be the most possible answer for the peopling of Americas. This topic for today is climate. Now, climate began to cool globally around this time, causing what we know as the last glacial maximum, or what we commonly refer to as the Ice Age. So, scientists theorize that the Walker circulation was actually the cause of the global drop in climate. Now, you're probably wondering what this means, and the definition on Wikipedia is basically the movement patterns of when hot winds and cool winds begin to circulate with each other from both the eastern and western Pacific. And this happens due to changes in tropical weather. And the Walker circulation, like I said, is a possible reason that caused global cooling due to the trade in winds circulating. And this can cause places to be cold or a drastic change in climate, which then cause the northern hemisphere ice sheets to grow. And global climate change is something that occurs and causes the temperature to significantly drop. And this is possibly why we had the climate change in the Pleistocene, which caused the peopling of the Americas, which connects back to our last slide. So, today we talked about the evolution of Homo sapiens and how evolution is a change in an organism that shifts away from its original form. We talked about how modern humans evolved from primates and became what we know today. We talked about characteristics, which were changes in skull, changes in bone, and also bipedalism, which is the transition to walking on two legs. We talked about the dispersal to the Americas, the two theories, and about how the coastal corridor is more possible for dispersal because the other one is a little tricky when it comes to evidence. And then we talked about climate, which is about the extremely cold temperatures that were brought on from the Walker circulation, which was a change in tropical weather, and how it allowed for the dispersal to the Americas. And all of these things have led us to where we are now. Evolution, the characteristics, dispersal and migration to the Americas, and the climate change are how we became around today. And these are the works that I used for journal articles and to find all my information about Homo sapiens.